Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Brew Market Podcast. I'm your host, Rakshit, and today we have an amazing guest. He is a CA, then went on to be a VC, and then moved into creating, and now he's starting his own venture in the creator economy segment. It seems like there's nothing he can't do. It's none other than Kushal Lodha. So, welcome to the podcast, Kushal. I cannot wait to dig this thing to dig with you and get into this thing and talk more about the creator economy and everything.
Thanks a lot for having me. And I think you hyped me up. I don't think I deserve this kind of an introduction because that's way too much. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor to be on your show. And yeah, I would love to add any value to all the audience who are there.
Lovely, man. I don't think it's hyped up. I mean, you deserve everything that you've been saying. I mean, I've been working with you from a few months now on LinkedIn, and I've seen the kind of content you've been creating and the growth you've had, especially on LinkedIn at least. And now you're 100K on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, which is massive, right?
Yeah. So I think that's all about. Firstly, it was. I don't think I ever started out by choice, but yeah, I think 100K on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. I don't know. That's a big thing or not, but it's like a good feeling for me also. I want to scale this up parallelly. Let's see how it goes. But yeah, with your help and with everyone of my friends' help, it's easier to grow.
Yeah. Of course, man. And we'll get into that soon. But before that, to the viewers who don't know you, I would do you want to just give a brief about yourself and your journey and everything?
Sure. So hi everyone, I am Kushal Lodha, born and brought up in Nashik, shifted to Bombay in 2017 for my CA articleship. I completed my chartered accountancy in November 2019, luckily got an all India rank across all the 3 levels of CA exams, post which I joined Aditya Birla Group in June 2020. I worked there for 2 years. I was in the corporate finance department, post which I was an executive assistant to the chief economist of Aditya Birla Group. And my final stint was with Aditya Birla Ventures, which is a VC fund in Aditya Birla Group, where we used to invest in early stage startups. I used to specifically look at fintech and edtech side of it. And parallelly with my stint at Aditya Birla Group, I also cleared all levels of CFA and ACCA, which is a course in US and UK respectively. And I'm also a part-time content creator with over 350K followers on social media, where I primarily talk about finance, startups, and business models. And luckily, I was awarded as a LinkedIn's top voice a couple of months back, where LinkedIn gives this award to 11 creators from every genre, every year in India. So that's a bit about me. As far as my current projects are concerned, I am now writing a book called as Unicorn Secret, which is expected to be published in the first half of next year, where I'm interviewing 20 unicorn founders of India. And I'm working on my own startup, which is in stealth mode right now, the details of which I would like to disclose after a couple of months once I publicly launch it.
Lovely. Okay, man. So tell me about your journey. You mentioned you were a CA and then you got into the VC and then you completely moved into creator economy now. So how has this journey been and what are your takeaways from each of these phases of your life?
Right. I think it's been very fascinating and it's an interesting story. I never wanted to become a creator. I don't like myself being called as an influencer or a content creator, to be honest. I hate it when people call me you're an influencer and all. I'm just a normal human being. I think I just started sharing my lessons and values with everyone. So people started following. So I cleared my CA exams and a lot of people used to ask me the same set of questions. How did you study? So everyone used to call me a bhaiya. They still call me a bhaiya, Kushal bhaiya and all. That is also one thing which I hate. Yeah. And basically, they used to ask me same set of questions. So I thought rather than replying to each and every one of them, let me try to create a YouTube video. And I'll share the link with everyone who's there so that I don't have to reply to each and every one of them separately. And that's how I started YouTube. Then Dheere Dheere, I started sharing my CA final notes and CFA notes on LinkedIn. And people started sharing that link as well. People started liking and commenting. And I thought that let's, if people are liking, commenting, let's also try to share some life lessons with everyone. Everyone goes through some tough phase in their life or everyone goes through some failures, etc. Let's try to be open and transparent with everyone else. So, I wanted to give a message that, okay, even I have failed, even I have suffered a lot, but it's okay. You have to move on ultimately. So posting relatable posts on LinkedIn, I started with that in November 2020. And then after that, Instagram started where I used to make short form reels on finance, education, and the business case studies, etc. Yeah. So VC stint was quite lucrative in terms of the opportunities of talking to a lot of new startup founders, understanding what they're trying to build and trying to be on the other side where you're interacting with almost 4 founders every day. and you're trying to see what they're doing in their life. So that's a very good learning, and that's a very lucrative stint in terms of interacting with new people and networking with them. And
Mhm.
apart from that, like the transition into creator economy, if you ask me, it was more because of the fact that I always had the passion of like teaching and adding value to the audience. So that's how
Mhm.
people started following after a point of time. And I thought that I was literally enjoying more in the creator economy. So let's take a plunge from the job which was in VC to building something in the creator economy. So
Mhm.
that's why I thought I'll take a plunge in entrepreneurship now, and entrepreneurship was always there at the back of my mind because
Yeah.
I have always come from that family background. My dad, like, he's into real estate. My family, everyone is into real estate,
Mhm.
and everyone, like, they've never done a corporate job in their life. So I was the first one who's done a corporate job, and they were very happy that okay, Kushal is joining Aditya Birla Group. That's a big thing for the entire
Yeah.
family. And yeah, that was the case when I had joined. So yeah, that was the transition in the creator economy. But learnings all in all, like, I think like, you get to meet a lot of people, network with them, and you get to understand that every relationship has to be two-way. You have to give value in order to get value after a point of time,
Yeah.
and you always have to express your opinion in terms of you have to be open-minded, you have to be expressive, and you don't have to be shy and just keeping quiet in all the meetings wherever you go.
Mhm.
So these are some of the key learnings which I've got in my stints, and yeah, I think that was a transition in the creator economy.
Got it. And how was your conversation? Because you mentioned that you were in the corporate sector and then you moved into the startup phase, right? So how was the conversation then at home? Because you were saying, like, I mean, they were really happy that you got into the corporate sector and everything. How was a thing? Like, I mean, what would you suggest? Like, because there's so many youngsters who are thinking about like moving into the startup sector or like starting something of their own. Do you have any tips for them? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think my idea or maybe my philosophy was that if I am passionate about something, I'll definitely go for it no matter what
Yeah.
the society is going to say. And my parents are extremely supportive when it comes to allowing whatever I want to do because they have faith and trust in me in terms of whatever I do, I'll do good for myself and I'll make good amount of money for myself at least. So that's the
Hmm.
faith and confidence they had, and it was a very easy like conversation with them, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
I told them I'm more passionate about this space and I'll make like 2x 3x the money which I'm making in my job right now, and I
Hmm.
promise you, which is like happening even today in today's month as well. So if
Uh-huh.
that is happening, then well and good. If I'm able to keep my promises, then that's like it's a good thing. So that was
Hmm.
not a difficult conversation. Difficult conversation was with my boss, with my manager, when I had
Okay.
to tell him that okay, I'm thinking to quit my job and like do something in the creator economy. That was
Uh-huh.
very much difficult, to be honest. But conversation with my parents was not at all difficult. They're extremely supportive, and they also like they always keep like sharing, liking my reels, liking my LinkedIn posts or YouTube
Yeah.
videos. My mom watches almost every content whatever I upload any on any platform. My
Uh-huh.
dad has downloaded Instagram, LinkedIn only because to see, like, only because of me, like to see my content. That's it. Because
Wow.
he is
Yeah.
very socially inactive. He doesn't like social media at all.
Uh-huh.
In fact, he downloaded, like, he didn't even have YouTube. YouTube to inbuilt hota hai mobile mein. He
हाँ
didn't used
वही.
to open YouTube. But today he opens YouTube just because he wants to see me कि okay क्या बात कर रहा है, क्या बोल रहा है मेरा बेटा, चलो देख लेते हैं.
हाँ.
So he downloaded LinkedIn. He created Insta ID. He only has 7 followers, out of which one is me. And he follows only 3 people. So
Yeah.
me, my sister, and one cousin. So
Yeah.
that's like he created Insta. On LinkedIn also he created just to follow me and see what I'm posting,
Yeah.
etc. So I think they're very supportive. And talking
Uh-huh.
about the second part of the question where you're thinking what advice I'd like to give anyone who wants to start up, etc. I think if you have some idea or if you're passionate about something, then
Mhm.
definitely you should take up plans without thinking if you're going to make more or less. The
Yeah.
mindset or problem with anyone who quits the job and goes into a startup is that ऐसे लगता है कि मैं जॉब में जितना पैसा कमा रहा था उससे मेरे को ज्यादा कमाना चाहिए तो ही मैं
हाँ.
स्टार्टअप में जाऊंगा.
हाँ.
But this
Mhm.
doesn't happen, to be honest. In startup, you don't have a recurring income until and unless
Mhm.
you go for, let's say, services based company, etc. But if you're
Mhm.
starting something, if you're building a product or if you're building some tech tool, etc., you'll need to burn your cash in order to make that tool.
Exactly.
Then only
Yeah.
you'll be able to sell. So don't have
Mhm.
this mindset that you have to make more than your job initially in the first or second month itself. Have
Mhm.
this mindset of you'll be able to make good amount of money after 6 to 8 months once you've spent that time on building that product. And I
Yeah.
think building that experience when you get in building something is way more valuable than the experience which you'll get in terms of learning
Exactly.
from someone else in an employment. So that's the thing
Yeah.
which I've realized.
Exactly. Like, I mean, you need to learn how to love the process rather than love the results, right? Like, because if you keep chasing results and you're not focusing on the process itself, then you'll just burn out or you'll just give up within a month or two, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, enjoy your journey, irrespective of what the outcome is.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
like that. That's a firm statement which I believe in.
Hmm. And okay, so like I mean, as a VC and as an investor, I want to talk about that as well because you've been doing that. So, what is your exit strategy, and like what exactly do you look at when you, or like first is like what exactly do you look at when you're investing? Second is when do you know when to exit? These two things.
Right. So I cannot talk about the exit part because I left my VC job in 6 months, so I did not do any exit as such. But I can talk
Okay.
about the investing part where,
Mhm.
oh, by the way, I have the same bottle, the LinkedIn one.
Exactly.
I don't know if
Yeah,
it's visible
I
or not.
noticed
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So basically, about the investing one, I can talk about that. So basically,
Uh-huh.
whenever you invest in a startup, there are like multiple things which you have to look for. The first and the most important thing is the founder.
Uh-huh.
How frugal is the founder in terms of achieving something or in terms of tackling the challenges, etc. Any
Mhm.
VC would bet on the founder and then the product because they know that if the product also doesn't scale or survive, the founder has, or maybe he'll do some jugaad in order to just scale the product, or he'll just pivot the business model.
Exactly.
So I
Mhm.
think that's one. Number two is that you look how big is the market and what market share can this company ideally capture in the near
Mhm.
future, in 2 years, 3 years down the line. That's
Mhm.
that's an important part. Then number three is the competition in the space. So for
Mhm.
example, how many people, how many companies are already there in this space?
Mhm.
Which is the leading company? How
Yeah.
are you different from your competitors? Is there anything, or is there any moat which your company has which other companies don't?
Mhm.
So, for example, even if I'm building something today,
Yeah.
I need to know the answers of these questions, that what is something that my company will have which other companies won't? Like if someone copies or
Mhm.
replicates, what is it that the other company won't survive or succeed than you? Because there are
Mhm.
a lot of
Yeah.
competitors who will just copy your product and can survive and can
Exactly.
defeat you after a point of
Yeah.
time. So that's
Yeah.
also quite important.
Mhm.
And then apart from that, you also check about the monetization aspect in terms of how is it monetizing, what are the
Mhm.
revenues, what is the multiple where you're investing, what is the industry multiple. By multiple, what I mean is that there's always a valuation multiple assigned to all the startups. So it's
Okay.
usually revenue based because startups are
Uh-huh.
not profitable initially, they are loss making. And that's why we check the multiple of the revenue. If it is 5x, 10x, 15x,
Mhm.
20x, depends on
Yeah.
which industry you're in. If
Yeah.
you're in a tech industry, the ideal multiple should be 20x of your revenue. So your valuation
Okay.
should be anywhere between 15 to 20x of what your revenue is, the
Mhm.
annual recurring revenue.
Yeah.
So you have to check these multiples and all. And last thing I think, which is very important, is the fundraise plan. If a startup has come for fundraise, right? So
Mhm.
you have to ask like, what is your allocation? Why are you using? Why are you like raising funds? How are you
Mhm.
going to leverage them? How are you going to deploy them after a point of time?
Mhm.
So you have to
Right.
understand the founder should have a concrete plan in terms of what is the allocation of all the funds, like employment, tech building, hiring, operations, logistics, etc.
Mhm.
And yeah, after all this, then once you do your due diligence, then you take a bet if you want to invest in this company or not. But
Got it.
mostly the bets would be founder related. If the founder is really, really good and if he has like amazing knowledge about the industry and all, then I
Mhm.
think that's like a very green flag for any VC to invest in a founder.
Makes sense. And how long does this process take? Like, because I've spoken to a few people, they say it takes about like 6 months, right? Like the whole process. While we see on Shark Tank and everything, within 10 minutes, they just say, yeah, I'm gonna invest in you. So how, like, I mean, how long does it take usually, like at least for you when you've been there, when you've
I think
experienced?
1.5 months from the first
Uh-huh.
call to signing the term sheet. One and
Okay.
a half months is an ideal time where you also have to do the due diligence. Then there's an investment committee meeting, IC meeting,
Mhm.
which is there. And in the IC meet, once it is approved, you sign the term sheet, and then money in the bank happens anywhere between 1 month after the term sheet is signed. Once all the
Mhm.
formalities are done, signing the SHAs, the shareholder agreement, the share subscription agreement, etc.
Mhm.
I think the overall period of transferring, like from introductory call to transferring money in the bank, would be around 2.5 months, is
Mhm.
what my guess is. But
Mhm.
from the time of introduction call to at least signing the term sheet, that should be around 1.5 months.
Got it. Okay. Okay, now let's talk about the creator economy and like the businesses and everything that's happening in India, especially. So, how is the creator economy in India like different from creator economy and like the businesses that are there in other countries, especially like say talk about the US? Like, what do you think is different in India and like how are we evolving? What are your thoughts on that?
Brilliant question. First point is that in US, creators are able to monetize much better. Plus, the paying capacity of the brands, etc., is much higher as compared to
Mhm.
India. The cost per the CPM and RPM, cost per thousand impression and revenue per thousand impression, it's almost 5 to 6x of what is the CPM and RPM in India. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two is that creators in US get almost 40 to 50% of their revenue from Google AdSense, which is the YouTube Google AdSense income which they get.
Yeah.
In India, hardly, even if considering my example or any example, if you consider in India, not more than 5 to 10% of any creator's income would come through Google AdSense.
Okay.
So mostly the income in India comes through influencer marketing, which is brand deals.
Brand collabs.
And it's a $200 million industry in India right now, 1500 crore ka hai, but it is expected to grow at a rapid scale in the future. And my thesis is that brands will spend more on influencer marketing than performance marketing in order to generate their sales and leads after a point of time and leverage the audience of the influencers, the loyal audience. That's number two. Number three, the mindset of creators in US is much different than the mindset of creators in India. By that, what I mean is that companies like Creative Juice, companies like Carrot, Spotify, not Spotify, companies like Jelly Smack, companies like Spotter. These are four companies which are doing very well in USA, by the way. So the model of Creative Juice and Carrot is that they give loans to creators. So Carrot is like a fintech in the creator economy where it'll give loans to creators and all. So creators in US are very much adaptive and they are very much happy to take loans, etc. And they also need capital in order to grow as a person, and that's going in the US. So if you give capital to creators in US, they'll be more happy. But in India, everyone is like, in India, the creators are reluctant to take initial bet of capital because they think that either someone will control me or I will just lose out or I'll dilute some or the other point of time. There'll be some supervision or there'll be someone who's monitoring me all the time. So that's the mindset which is different, and therefore companies who are just adopting sport like models like Spotter, etc., they are like struggling in India in order to just scale after a point of time because the creator's mindset is very different from what the mindset is there in US. That's the third difference. And apart from that, I think the fourth difference would be the subscription-based model and the AI/ML. So in US, companies like Jasper.ai, which recently became a unicorn, $1.8 billion, they just raised their Series A. Those companies are flying off because in US, people are willing to subscribe for these kind of products, like even brands, even creators, etc. But subscription-based model in India, usually it's like, like people share their IDs and passwords. Like, आज मैं अगर YouTube Premium लूँगा, so I'll share their ID password with 5 of my friends and I'll divide that cost by 5. That's the jugaad which we are doing in India. And that's why subscription-based model work well in the US because of the higher paying capacity as compared to India. And that's the reason why companies like Substack, companies like Jasper, companies like any other company which is a subscription-based model, they are working well in US as compared to India. So yeah, these would be my 4 pointers.
Then, so you mentioned about, say, how brands will start investing more on influencer marketing rather than paid ads and everything. Do you think that's going to be the case even with the way the climate is right now with respect to recession and everything that's happening and people getting laid off? How is the creator economy or like the spends and everything going to change in India, like in the coming few months or say year also?
I think see, what the point is that every brand has a marketing budget which is allocated to them, right? So the question for them to answer is that they have to spend on marketing in order to acquire customers. The question is whether you spend on performance marketing or influencer marketing is a question which they need to answer in order to acquire the customers. Now, like the customer acquisition cost, at least with all the brands I have interacted and worked with, they always tell me that the CAC is much lesser for them when they do influencer marketing as compared to performance marketing. And that's why they are preferring to spend more on influencers in order to acquire customers because they have a loyal audience. So I feel even if like the funding winter is going around and it might last for some few months as well, even if it lasts for some few months, I still think that brands wouldn't be reluctant to spend on influencers as far as they are getting returns from that influencer. Because after a point of time, they need to calculate their return on ad spend, right? So if they're spending 1 rupee, they need to generate sales of at least 2 rupees, 3 rupees, 4 rupees, etc. That is the ideal return on ad spend which a brand should expect. So if they're paying me 50,000 or maybe 1 lakh rupees for a reel or for the YouTube integrated video, their sales should increase by 3 lakhs or 4 lakh rupees. That's when they'll be able to justify their spend. So that is happening in the industry, and that's why I feel that even if there's a funding winter, even if there's anything, as far as the influencers are able to help brands get their customers and leverage their audience, I think the spends wouldn't go down. In fact, my bet is that this $200 million industry of influencer marketing in India, this will definitely hit $1 billion in the next 4 to 5 years for sure.
Wow. Okay.
So that's my bet. And a lot of people have said this, by the way, and they're also quite bullish on influencer marketing. And yeah, 1500 crores abhi pura spend kiya, like sub brands ne mila ke on influencers in India. So ye 1500 crore ka, I don't see any reason not to go beyond 8000 crores in the next 4 or 5 years.
Makes sense. And even during this like this period also, do you think the spends will be as high? Like, I mean, with recession and everything, or do you think like there'll be like thoda sa dip abhi, of course, because of...
No, so I'll tell you, spends वगैरह जो है ना, like I think spends and all, they'll remain constant, but the selection of creators might differ. So for example, a leading creator in finance space, he'll get a lot of brand deals, and a lot of brands would be willing to pay him some amount of money as compared to other creator who doesn't have the reach and engagement. So I feel that the spends wouldn't go down as such. The creator who's getting a lot of engagement and has a loyal audience, that creator will always win the game, and that creator will always help the brands in order to acquire future customers.
Makes sense.
So spends, I don't think they'll go down significantly, but in fact, I just think that the allocation of creators would depend upon what kind of engagement they're having.
Yeah, I think that will be much more selective now.
Yeah.
So, okay, if there's one space, there's one area in this creator economy that you would bet on that is going to grow, especially in India, what would it be and why?
So, like one area, as in like what
as
kind
in
of...
you mentioned, like subscription models and like these things are something that will not work in India. Like, I mean, at least not as much as in the US. What will work? Like, what do you think? How can creators monetize? Like, is there some other space, or is there some other company, or like some other model that would work in India? Like, what do you think?
Got it. I think in creator economy specifically, monetization is a big challenge for creators. If you're able to solve for that, there are a lot of companies doing it. Companies like Rigi, companies like Kuhu, companies like Cosmofeed, Tag Mango, etc., who are able to help creators monetize. If you're solving for that problem of monetization of creators, then I think you can really be like, you can win the game, because that's the biggest problem in the creator economy, and having that certain source of income. So if you're helping creators having that certain source of income, then definitely that's a big value add. That is number one. And number two, which I really feel is like automation of this content repurposing and automation using AI and ML. So in fact, even I was thinking of this business idea that building an AI ML tool which will automatically reply to all your comments, then building an AI ML tool which will automatically repurpose your content.
Okay.
So for example, if you are uploading an Instagram reel, automatically that should, let's say, get uploaded on all the different social media handles, and you don't have to just like manually do and go on every social media handle to upload
probably
it.
Convert that reel into a script. I mean, like, and make it a LinkedIn post.
Correct. So basically, what is happening for me even, and for a lot of creators, is that the biggest problem is that you have to be very manual. Like for example, मैंने reel डाल दिया, उसके बाद मेरे को automatically story डालना पड़ता है, मेरे को सब comments को manually reply करना पड़ता है, Instagram का caption लेके मेरे को वो LinkedIn post में लिखना पड़ता है, वही उसका Twitter thread बनाना पड़ता है. So content repurposing is happening at a very wide scale. None of the creators want to stay on one platform, because they know अगर TikTok ban हो गया तो कोई भी platform ban हो सकता है. अगर ban हो गया, then I'm just dead. I'm just screwed up. So basically, they are trying to diversify their audience base on all the social media, and that's why I also ensured कि मैं YouTube पे भी हूँ, Instagram पे भी हूँ, LinkedIn पे भी हूँ, and I didn't focus only on one social media platform. So every creator now wants to grow on all the social media platforms in order to not have that fear of like one media platform being banned. And that's why like content repurposing is a very big game according to me. Even if you're like there are so many agencies which are helping creators to repurpose their content. So I was just approached by one of the agencies, and they offered me that we'll just repurpose your content. So they are doing it by manual intervention. They have hired some people. All the people will go through my YouTube videos. They'll ensure कि okay, best tweets इसको डाल सकते हैं. They'll go through my LinkedIn post, and they'll say कि आप Instagram के reel ऐसे बना सकते हो. They'll go through my Instagram reels and create a LinkedIn post for me. So they are doing this repurposing, and that's working very well. So I've started working with them from 1st of November, 4 days back, and so I really like the product.
Is this like an influencer management?
No, it's not an influencer marketing agency. It's just a content repurposing agency. That's it. I mean, their niche is content repurposing, and I'm just loving the way they're working. And I think it's a very services-based business as of now. But if that guy or if that company can just use some tech after a point of time, maybe that can become a very big business in itself.
That's an idea that I also had. Like, I mean, wherein, like, say there are so many creators who are like say the people working itself, when you work in Aditya Birla Group, I don't think you had the time to like make content on YouTube and everything and all of the other social media platforms consistently, right? So I mean, like I was thinking of like say some a service wherein like say not managing the creators but managing the content, helping them come up with better content, repurposing and all these things. That essentially what you were saying, because that's something that a lot of creators, it's like a pain point for a lot of creators. And if they could outsource, I spoke to quite a few agencies also, they were like, if I can outsource this thing to someone, I would do it, right?
Right.
So, exactly what you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, tell me about this. Like, why did you start creating, and like, what got you? You mentioned like this thing initially that you wanted. It started because of your CA and people asking you questions and everything. But how did your like so initially you started that way? How do your goals change over the period, and what are your
Yeah.
goals now with respect to
Yeah.
creating content?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, yeah, that's how I started, like preparing
Yeah.
CA related material. If you go on my YouTube channel, you won't even watch any video because it's completely related to CAs, like how
Yeah.
I got a rank in my CA finals, where did I join my coaching, what did I do, how to study for 12 hours a day. These are the kind of videos I
Uh-huh.
used to create, and people used to like it actually. So it was more
Yeah.
like a CA coach, CA teaching kind of an approach which I had taken initially, but I never wanted to become a teacher. Though I love
Uh,
teaching, to be honest, but I don't want to be a CA teacher. I want to become something bigger or better than that.
uh,
So after that, I think goals changed because I got 50,000 subscribers in less than 1 year. I thought, why to stop it if I'm getting good response? Let's begin a
mhm,
podcast called as Conversation with Kushal, where I'll try to interview industry stalwarts and try
mhm,
to give back to the society in terms of
mhm.
what are their learnings, lessons, etc. So that's how I
Yeah.
started the podcast Conversation with Kushal. And after that, my LinkedIn journey, I think it was very, very generic only. I never posted
Mhm,
about CA, etc. That's how I started by sharing my CA final notes. But after
uh-huh.
that, I always posted about my experience at Aditya Birla Group, my
Yeah.
interview experiences at a lot of companies like BCG, ITC, Deutsche Bank, etc.
Mhm,
Then my experiences with like what did I learn from my mom, from my dad? How do
mhm.
they inspire me every time, etc. So these kind of posts,
Yeah.
and these kind of posts really work well on LinkedIn, specifically given the fact that people feel relatable and people feel
Mhm.
that okay, even I've been going through this phase,
Yeah.
and this is something which everyone is experiencing.
I think because
So
the Gen Z audience is also increasing in India, and
yeah,
your content is catering towards that.
correct,
So I mean, you
correct.
get a lot of engagement, and that blows up as well, right?
Yeah, and I was surprised. I don't know. My engagement works really well with LinkedIn. Thanks to you guys
Uh-huh.
that you are you LinkedIn guys are favoring me. I don't know why, but yeah, my engagement is really better as compared to other creators.
Uh-huh.
I get, I mean, on an average, it's around 2.5%, which is much more as compared to the industry average of 1.5% engagement on
Mhm.
LinkedIn.
Mhm.
And I think that's all because of the relatability aspect and
Yeah.
the
Totally.
like if someone reads my post, I feel that they are like कि हाँ मेरे को भी ऐसे लग रहा है मैंने ही लिखा है post. It
हाँ.
feels as if
हाँ.
I have written this down on
Is
my
their
piece of paper
story?
and he's just
हाँ.
posted it on behalf
हाँ.
of me.
वही.
So that's the feeling which I get. So one of the posts which went crazy viral, I think I shared the link with you also, right?
Yeah.
It got some 177,000 likes and it got 10.8 million
That's
impressions.
what pushed you to
So
100K, right?
yeah, so
That
I
was
was
the
at
case.
80K, and because of that
Yeah.
post, I got to 100K in one day itself,
Yeah.
20,000 followers in a day. And I think that was very much relatable. I mean, I don't know why people loved it so much, but
Uh-huh.
that was very much relatable. It was as if people were saying, "I have only written this, and you just
Yeah.
stole my words, etc." So that's how.
Uh-huh.
And my goals as of now would be to just cater generic content on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
cater like a
Mhm.
business case studies content on Instagram, and on YouTube,
Yeah.
it's more about podcasting where I interview industry stalwarts.
Mhm.
So today I'm uploading a podcast with Nikhil Kamath. Then next Saturday
Right.
it's with Nitin
Mhm.
Kamath. Then
Mhm.
next Saturday it's with Anubhav Dubey, founder of Chai Sutta Bar. Then uske
Mhm.
baad wala Saturday it's with Harsh Mariwala, chairman of Marico.
Yeah.
So I have my all
Mhm.
the podcast planned and scheduled.
Damn cool. Okay, nice. I mean, it's interesting how you have like a plan for each of the thing. I mean, that is one thing that I was going to ask you also later. Like
Yeah,
you mentioned, like you've hit 100K on Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn, and even you're building your Twitter now, right? So,
yeah.
what are
Give me
your
some tips for Twitter.
yeah, I was gonna ask you that. Like, what are some tips that you would like to give to budding creators to do like
Yeah,
on these platforms so that they can grow?
yeah.
Like, what are your growth hacks and what do you
Yeah,
think is
I think
working?
first number one is
Yeah.
very important is just be consistent. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, even if your engagement is dropping, even if your followers are, let's say, reducing, God forbid it should not happen, but it happens with a lot of creators,
Uh,
or even if you don't get that likes, that views,
yeah.
if your traction is going down, that's absolutely fine. Just be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
You never know, one of the reels can go viral, one of the posts can go viral, and all
Mm-hmm.
the previous posts automatically go viral. So be
Uh-huh.
consistent. That's number one. Number two is that your quality should be up to
Mm-hmm.
the mark.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, for any creator to succeed, there are two aspects. One is the content quality, other
Yeah.
one is the production quality.
Mm-hmm.
By content quality, what I mean is the depth of research and the amount of hard work and research you are doing, like giving deep
Mm-hmm.
insights, which these people, like everyone is lazy in the world. And the
Yeah.
easier you give them very deep insights, it becomes easier for them to okay view your content.
Yeah.
तो कैसे कि सब लोग मतलब एकदम आलसी हो गया एंड अगर आप एकदम उनको वैल्यू एडिटिव दे दोगे लाइक इन द फर्स्ट 30 seconds
Value
itself,
works
people
always.
will be like कि हाँ चलो मैं इसको फॉलो करता हूँ because I am lazy, I'm not going to dig out so much, he's doing my work
Huh.
for me and I'll just watch his content. So that is
Exactly.
content quality. And second is production quality, where
Mm-hmm.
after a point of time, what I feel is you need to invest in your cameras, in your
Mm-hmm.
mics, in the
Yeah.
editing style, in the like entire quality, subtitles, etc. I'm not saying you should
Mm-hmm.
start from scratch,
Yeah.
but until like after you hit 50,000 or maybe
Um,
60, 70,000, you have that money. I mean, a
hmm.
creator with 100,000 followers can monetize very well. He can charge 60, 70,000 for an Instagram reel, etc.
Um,
And even if he does four reels a month, it's like good 2.1
Good
lakh,
enough.
2.8 lakhs,
Yeah.
etc. So I
Yeah.
think you have the money. After a point of time, you need to invest and don't
Mm-hmm.
just think कि, okay मैं पैसा कमा के मेरे बैंक एफडी में रख लूंगा ऐसे वैसे. Just try to reinvest in the creator space, and
Exactly.
then I
Mhm.
think it becomes easier for you to grow. Like content quality का ध्यान रख लो and
Mhm.
production quality का ध्यान रख लो. That's number
Mhm.
two. And
Mhm.
number three, just focus on what you're expert at. For example,
Yeah.
I am expert at, let's say, talking or maybe recording in front of camera. उसके बाद
Mhm.
I give outsource everything. मतलब I am a big fan of delegation and multitasking. Okay, तो मैं क्या करता
Yeah.
हूँ कि मेरी पूरी टीम है जो पूरा हैंडल कर लेगी. So मैं सिर्फ रिकॉर्ड करके गूगल ड्राइव लिंक शेयर कर दूंगा, and
Uh-huh.
everyone in the team will have certain responsibilities.
Yeah.
There's a person who's a video editor who'll edit the video. There's a graphic designer who'll design the reel cover. There's a
Mhm.
social media manager who'll ensure that the video is edited properly and he'll upload at 6 p.m. sharp on my
Exactly.
Instagram.
Mhm.
There's an executive assistant who will help me with all the brand deals which I'm getting, inbound brand deals. And
Mhm.
there are two content writers who will just help me with all the scripts before the scripts are given to me, before I
Makes
record them.
sense. Yeah.
So everything is automated. I just
Mhm.
devote like Sundays only for my content creation. जितना भी
Yeah.
content बनाता हूँ पूरा Sunday को बैठ के करता हूँ.
Acha.
LinkedIn, YouTube,
Mhm.
Instagram. And
Mhm.
Monday to Saturday मेरे startup पे जो काम चालू है, I'm just
Uh-huh.
doing that as of now, which is at an ideation phase, but hopefully I should launch it by December or
Mhm.
January maximum.
Got it.
So yes, this is the schedule as of now.
I love that. I love that part where you mentioned how you have a team and what you're doing, because that's exactly what we're doing with Brew Your Market as well. We have like a graphic designer who's helping us with the designs, and then we have like this content writer who's helping us with the content, the social media manager, and then like the three of us who will come up with like who brainstorm with respect to content or kya jayega, this podcast stuff. All these stuff, like because we know that podcast and everything is something that we're good at, we don't delegate. But then the other things with respect to like carousels and content and written stuff, we're this thing, all these things, like I just say that you guys take care, but then like of course maintain the quality and everything as you mentioned, right? But
Correct. Yeah.
people don't really are not that comfortable in delegating, especially in content. Like what I've heard is like, I mean, creators are not that, they feel like, oh, this person might not be able to like write the way I want to write, right? So they like rope everything with themselves. What do you have? Like, what suggestions do you have for that?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. So if anyone is creating a creative reel or maybe they're acting,
Mhm.
etc., then I think it's difficult to delegate that part because you're expert in your creativity or everyone's creativity is very much different.
Mhm.
So even certain reels where I am acting or maybe where I am using some movie dialogues, etc., I write it
Yeah.
by myself only because I know not a lot of people will have that expertise of creativity, etc. If you're
Mhm.
making that reels, for example, Shreya Kapoor is one of my
Yeah.
friends and she
Uh-huh.
always does skits and she always writes very funny scripts and
Mhm.
very creative. Like people are just hooked up to all the scripts which she writes
Yeah.
and the acting which she does. So which is like
Uh,
just phenomenal. Right.
mhm.
So for example, if that is the quality, then I think it's very difficult for her to find that kind of a person because
Yeah.
if she's able to find that kind of a person, then even that person can
That
become a
person can
creator,
also,
right?
yeah. Mhm.
So for those kind of creators, Sharan, then
Mhm.
Shreya, who are just always acting and always very creative, it's difficult for them.
Yeah.
But for creators like me who are not into skits,
Yeah.
always who are just trying to give some information, I think it's easier for us to, let's say, ask someone to do a research for us on a
Yeah.
certain topic and
Mhm.
then just add my thoughts and opinions and then lay it out on in front of the camera.
Makes sense. Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, because you're adding value or like this thing that way. And it's much more easier comparatively, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, like, I mean, tell me about this thing. Like, how is creating content and like being active on social media and everything helped you in your startup journey? Like you're moving into startups, you're like
Very
doing.
much. I mean, I've already built my personal brand, is what I feel. I mean, if whatever I start, people will get to know because of the followers I have, right?
Uh-huh.
Usually it's the other way around. Once you start up and once you achieve a skill, then you go for PR, then you go for
Yeah,
branding, then
yeah.
you go go for podcast, etc.
Uh-huh.
But for me, I think I did it the reverse way. I
Yeah,
built my audience and then I'll build a distribution which I
exactly.
can leverage through my audience. So
Yeah.
I think it's the other way around for me, and I think it's definitely going to help a lot in my startup journey as well. It's like I have my future set of customers with me,
Yeah.
who are my like followers, who is my audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a big fan of, let's say, building a distribution first and then building a product.
Mm-hmm.
So ट्रेडिशनल कंपनीज क्या करते हैं कि दे बिल्ड अ प्रोडक्ट फर्स्ट एंड देन वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के लिए ये
हाँ,
करेंगे. फॉर
हाँ, हाँ,
एग्जांपल
हाँ.
एनी बिग कंपनी यू
Any
नेम, वो
big up,
प्रोडक्ट
yeah.
बना लेगी एंड देन डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ढूंढेंगे. बट
Mm-hmm.
नाउ क्रिएटर्स के लिए क्या है कि दे हैव बिल्ड देयर डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन. नाउ अभी उनको सिर्फ एक प्रोडक्ट लाना है जो डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर
Exactly.
सकते हैं वो ऑडियंस के
Yeah,
थ्रू.
that's something
सो
that I
दैट्स
saw even Shlok Srivastava, like this in Tech Burner. So he started his, like, of course, his YouTube channel, 8 million, and like he has so many other channels and everything. Now, very recently, he brought in layers. Like this phone case is very basic, but then he's doing really well because he has his distribution already, and he's like he can leverage that and he can grow. Right? That's exactly as you were saying.
yeah,
Build your
right,
distribution first.
right.
And okay, then 1 minute. Yeah. So let's talk about like what learnings you've had as a creator. What do you? Yeah.
I think learnings in terms of being a creator would be that you always have to have a collaborative mindset rather than a
Mhm.
competitive mindset. All
Mhm.
your creative friends, they are not your competitors, they are your collaborators. Like you grow together,
Yeah.
and that's how you're going to excel in the creator economy.
Mhm.
That's one. And number two would be that you always have to be active whenever there's any event.
Yeah.
You always have to be on the toes in terms of what's happening in the space, where
Mhm.
you can go and attend some events, where you can learn from someone, meet new people, network with
Mhm.
them. There are a
Mhm.
lot of successful creators also who are very famous in the creator economy. Try to meet them, network with
How
them,
do you
try to
find
understand
such
them.
events? How do you find such events?
I think it's like if you're exclusive to some agencies, like even agencies will only tell you.
Yeah.
If you're not
Mhm.
exclusive to any agencies, then you have to ensure that if any creator is posting any reel or story, then you have to see like, okay, kahan pe event hai, then you have to just approach the organizer if you want. Apart from that, you just get to know any if there's any creator day event. A lot of these events get
Mhm.
advertised like 2 months, 1 month before the
Yeah.
creator like event is happening. So
Mhm.
you can just apply, and that's how you get to these events after a point of
Mhm.
time. So networking is, like, I think it's very important in this
Mhm.
space.
Got it. And okay, then like what are few things that you would like to share to budding creators? Like what are few tips or like some this thing that that you would say that they have to do in order to grow? Like you mentioned being consistent,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
you mentioned about this networking and everything, that
yeah,
these are learnings that you've had. Are
yeah.
there any other things that you would like to
No,
share?
I think these two would be the
Uh,
ones only. I think be consistent and focus more on content and production quality, as I mentioned.
okay.
And I think these would be the advice in like for all the budding creators.
Lovely, man. I mean, I got a lot of listening tips and a lot of learnings. Okay, let's talk one last thing before we end. What are some things that do not work? Like what are some myths that you've seen in
Hmm.
creating, like in content creation space? Like because we've seen a lot of things where people say that do this, and do this. Let's talk about what are some myths that you've seen and what are things that don't work.
Hmm. I think something that don't work is that a lot of people feel that, okay, if you, let's say, ask someone to upload your story, some big creator to upload your story, your followers will increase
Uh,
significantly, etc. That usually doesn't work unless you have a quality content. So even if a
mhm,
lot of your friends are sharing, or maybe if a lot of big people are sharing your content, etc., it's
mhm.
like you have to have that organic growth rather than
Yeah.
having that inorganic growth. That is
Mhm,
one. Number two is that sponsored ads never work. If you're going to
mhm.
promote your reel, if you're going to promote your Instagram post, and like just pay Instagram some amount of money, that is like it'll fetch you like some good amount of followers after a point of time, but your engagement will drop
Yeah.
significantly. So that's the
Mhm.
thing which I never recommend to anyone. Growing
Uh-huh.
organically is much better than purchasing, or maybe than just like getting likes and spending on Instagram
Mhm.
as ads, etc. So
Yeah.
that's the thing which I really dislike. If there's any creator who's doing that, it means that they have not found the product market fit. The
Mhm.
organic you grow, the better it is for the brands also to give you brand deals, and the better it is for you also to become famous after a point of time.
Mhm. Makes
That's
sense.
number two. And number three is that you always like what doesn't work is that it's not that like these hashtags or maybe the captions which you write should be very much attractive, or maybe hashtags you should use as many hashtags as possible. That's just a myth, I think. A
Yeah.
lot of creators, now one of my very good friends, Shivanshu, I just love that guy in terms of the reels which he makes and
Uh-huh.
the quality of audio, video, everything. And he just writes one line as caption, 1 or 2 lines.
Yeah.
Marketing Shivanshu. He has 1.2 million followers and he uses,
Mhm.
I think, 7, 8 hashtags, not more than that. So
Mhm.
it's absolutely fine. Like it completely depends upon how you are narrating and how you are
Exactly.
providing value to the audience. And if
Mhm.
your reel is getting shared and saved by a lot of people, automatically Insta will promote your reel after a point of time.
True. Yeah.
So it's not that you have to write 15, 20 hashtags, then only your reel will boom up, etc. It's just
Uh-huh.
about how much value you provide to the audience. Ultimately, that matters a lot.
Mhm.
So these are like some of the three things which I think I could
Perfect.
add.
Perfect, man. Okay, now before we end, I have this fun game that I usually play with all my
Okay.
guests. It's called Rapid Brew, okay? Wherein I have a
Mm,
few cards. I'm going to like shuffle them.
mm.
And the first card that comes up, like whatever question comes up, you just got to answer that like in 10 seconds or 12 seconds or
Sure,
less. Yeah,
sure.
let's do that. Okay, first question. Okay, what's one nickname you've had and who gave it to you?
Oh my god, I can use this in my podcast also.
Yeah.
Thanks. One nickname. Kushi is one nickname which
Okay.
a lot of people call me. Kushi.
Yeah.
And it was given by my mama's son. So my elder brother, my first
Mhm.
cousin, my real
Uh-huh.
mama's son. Uh,
Okay. Wow. Kushi. Okay. Nice.
yeah. Don't,
That's
no one is supposed to call me that. My name is Kushal. That's it.
okay. All right. And what's one thing you always have fun doing?
Hmm. Playing table tennis.
Playing table
Yeah.
tennis. Fun. Yeah. Even I enjoy that. Next. Okay. What's your go-to random act of kindness?
What's your?
Go-to random act of kindness.
Oh, going to orphanage and giving them food.
Lovely. Okay. You usually visit like, I mean, every week or like how's it?
No, not every week as such.
Uh-huh.
Like every birthday for sure.
Uh-huh.
And apart from that, maybe once in 2 months.
Damn cool. Like I used to volunteer with this organization called You and I,
Hmm.
and wherein we used to teach underprivileged kids and
Hmm.
everything. You used
I
to
also
do.
love to go to this
Yeah.
goshalas and give
Uh, yeah.
rotis to the cows.
Yeah. Okay. Next up. Okay. What's your favorite non-software product?
Favorite non-software?
Non-software product.
Hmm. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Uh, Table tennis racket. Yeah.
Okay. Finally, one last. Okay. What emoji do you use often?
Uh, I think that this is my favorite one. The new one which has come up, which is like smiling but with tears.
Yeah.
So that one, which is like somewhat, it has
I
tears in
know.
it and it is smiling also.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
use that quite often.
Love it. Yeah, I know. It
Apart from that,
shows
I'm
you.
big fan. Actually, I'm not big fan of emojis, but I'm big fan of the colon and then open bracket. You know, like colon and
Ah,
open bracket, which means a smile. So I
same.
often use that. I mean, I don't use the emojis for colon P, colon open bracket
Yeah,
for smile.
XD. I use
X,
XD a
yeah,
lot. Yeah,
right. So I use colon and D, that types.
perfect. Awesome, man. It was fun having you today. I got to learn a lot about the creator economy, and I'm sure the viewers as well. And I love the fun segments, all your answers. Table tennis, I know
Yeah.
that, and Kushi. I'm going to remember these two things for sure. So,
No, I love the rapid fire, the rapid brew.
uh,
Yeah.
I mean, okay, then before we end, where do you like, do you have any closing thoughts that you'd like
I
to share?
think one closing thought would be that like you'll always have to prioritize your time very effectively. So
Mhm.
it's like everyone has 24 hours, but everyone needs to allocate that very effectively. So be productive all the time and just try to ensure that whatever you're doing or maybe
Mhm.
whatever you want to do ultimately, you have a
Mhm.
proper goal or proper plan in mind in terms of how you're going to achieve that.
Okay.
So focus more on that and focus more on long-term enjoyment as compared to short-term pleasures is what I
Mhm.
can say. Short-term pleasures can be dangerous and toxic as
Yeah.
compared to having the happiness and having that feeling of getting a long-term enjoyment. So this is
Okay.
very deep, by the way, and
Yeah.
I think if you read in between the lines,
Mhm.
you'll just get to know that all these short-term enjoyments are synthetic in nature, but
Mhm.
long-term enjoyments, long-term gifts which you can give to yourself and your family, I think those kind
Mhm.
of pieces would be very much useful to you in your life going ahead.
I love that. Focus on long-term pleasure rather than short-term enjoyments.
Yeah.
Nice way to end the this thing podcast.
Yeah.
And before we end, where do people find you? Like,
People can find me on Instagram. People can
mhm.
find me on YouTube. People can
Yeah.
find me on LinkedIn, where Rakshit is my creator manager. Now Twitter,
Um,
where I recently activated. And if you're
mhm.
asking me about cafes, etc., people can find me at Starbucks in Mumbai near Kamla Mills. So that's a place
Perfect.
where I go to quite often.
Mhm. And if you want to find us, follow us Brew Your Market on any of the social media platform, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, we're everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you,
Awesome.
man. Yeah. Nice having you
Thanks.
today.
Thanks to you, Rakshit. Had an amazing
Yeah.
time, and thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah. Anytime. Please feel free to like come to our podcast and talk. Would love to pick your brains.
Definitely.